Hello and welcome to another episode of 1000 Actually Fun Books, where we're on a quest to find the best of fun books that everybody should read. In this episode, we're doing a poem, which I want to say is unusual. I'm not going to have very many poetry anything in this because generally speaking, I kind of feel like they're hard to get into. Like if you think of a long book of all of Emily Dickinson's poems, for example, I don't think that most people would consider it fun to just sit down and read a whole bunch of them, although some people really like that, but most people don't. And this is a little bit more generalized. I don't think I would enjoy doing that. In little chunks, that would be okay, but not altogether. However, there are a handful of either poetry books or single poems that are fun, that are famous and entertaining, and so we're going to include a couple of them in my list here of 1000 great books. And so this first one is going to be The Spider and the Fly by Mary Howitt. And in case you aren't familiar, this is the very famous, it kind of gets misquoted, but, will you walk into my parlor, said the spider to the fly. And the entire poem there. And I'll talk about it a little bit later, but here is a picture book version, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, like I said. So this poem was written in 1829, so almost 200 years ago, but it is still very relevant today. And even though I have it listed in the description of my last video and in the description here, and it's public domain, so it's free to read, I am going to read it out loud to you. And I apologize, I am coming off of a cold, so if I'm a little froggy or cough or whatever, I apologize. But this is a pretty short poem. It's only 7 stanzas, and each stanza is typically about 6 lines long. So, this isn't, this would be 1 page worth of text. And it's fun to listen to. Will you walk into my parlor, said the spider to the fly. 'Tis the prettiest little parlor you ever did spy. The way into my parlor is up a winding stair, and I have many curious things to show you when you are there. Oh, no, no, said the little fly, to ask me is in vain, for who goes up your winding stair can ne'er come down again. I'm sure you must be weary, dear, with soaring up so high. Will you rest upon my little bed? Said the spider to the fly. There are pretty curtains drawn around, the sheets are fine and thin, and if you like to rest a while, I'll snugly tuck you in. Oh, no, no, said the little fly, for I have often heard it said, they never, never wake again who sleep upon your bed. Said the cunning spider to the fly, dear friends, what can I do to prove the warm affection I've always felt for you? I have within my pantry good store of all that's nice. I'm sure you're very welcome. Will you please take a slice? Oh, no, no, said the little fly, kind sir, that cannot be. I've heard what's in your pantry, and I do not wish to see. Sweet creature, said the spider, you are witty and you're wise. How handsome are your gauzy wings, how brilliant are your eyes. I've a little looking glass upon my parlor shelf. If you step in one moment, dear, you shall behold yourself. I thank you, gentle sir, she said, for what you're pleased to say, and I'm bidding you good morning now. I'll call another day. The spider turned him round about and went into his den, for he well knew the silly fly would soon come back again. So he wove a subtle web in a corner sly, and set his table ready to dine upon the fly. Then he came out to his door again, and merrily did sing, Come hither, hither, pretty fly, with the pearl and silver wing. Your robes are green and purple, there's a crest upon your head, your eyes are like the diamond bright, but mine are dull as lead. Alas, alas, how very soon this silly little fly, hearing his wily, flattering words, did slowly flitting come by. With buzzing wings she hung aloft, then near and nearer drew, thinking only of her brilliant eyes and green and purple hue. thinking only of her crusted head, poor foolish thing. At last up jumped the cunning spider, and fiercely held her fast. He dragged her up his winding stair into his dismal den, within his little parlor, but she never came out again. And now, dear little children, who may this story read, to idle, silly, flattering words, I pray you never give heed. Unto an evil counselor close heart and ear and eye, and take a lesson from this tale of the spider and the fly. So that is the poem. I'll give you the whole thing, and I think it's pretty brilliant. I mean, it's a really interesting poem. It has a good lesson, but it's kind of beautiful to hear, I think. Maybe not in my croaky voice, but in general, it's a really good poem. It's kind of one of those, everybody should read this because it's really good. Maybe there's somebody out there that, has done a better job in reading it aloud. So anyway, as far as poetry goes, this is pretty much, it checks all my boxes. It's an interesting storyline. It's beautiful, rhyming, flowing rhythm. I enjoy it. It's clever. So just the poem itself is on my list, but I am going to point out the picture book. So it's the exact same poem. None of the words have changed as far as I know. I don't think they even left anything out. But it is a black and white, beautiful illustrations. So I'm going to try and find some in here because I can only show you a handful because it is, the picture book itself is not in public domain. But I can show you a couple pictures. So here is the spider and the fly at dinner. So as you can see, maybe you can see that. So she is, the aesthetic here is a 1920s, she's got a flapper hat, and he is kind of this gangster. Here is her dismissing the food. So all the illustrations in this, like I said, are black and white, but they're gorgeous. They're very pretty. And on the opposite side, it has like the black and white, often the text itself is like the old-fashioned black and white silent films where they have it off to the side. So the illustrator did a gorgeous job. So if you're looking for the poem in a gorgeous format, I would recommend this one. It is a picture book, but I don't really recommend it for children, which is why I'm doing this as a poem, not as a children's book. So I own this book because I really liked it. I thought it was beautiful. I thought that the poem was fantastic, but my kids hated it. They loathed it because it was scary. It was creepy. I mean, obviously the fly doesn't make it at the end, and they did not like that. So as far as children's books goes, this is basically on the horror end of children's picture books. And most picture books are aimed at children ages 3, 4, that kind of age range, where you read it out loud to them, and they do not want a horror, scary picture book. So I love the picture book, but it's not really a kid's book. This is for adults who would be happy to have a gorgeous poem, not for little kids who, unless they're really into scary stuff, typically that wouldn't work. So I'll have a link to that on Amazon just in case you're interested in it, but for the most part I would consider that, it's just for fun. The poem itself is really the main thing. Okay, so I really don't have much else to say because it's not exactly like I can, give you much else about the poem since you heard it yourself. So we'll just end right there with reviewing that. So on to part 2. So my next book is going to be another nonfiction. I didn't like A Walk in the Woods, so I'm trying to find another nonfiction that's an adventure of some variety that I would actually like. And another bestseller that's on a lot of recommendation lists is Into Thin Air by John Cracker. my guess on how to pronounce it. I probably totally butchered that. But so it is a book about going on a exploration of Mount Everest. But this happens to be the journalist. He was just going up to, like, he was a mountaineer and always wanted to see Mount Everest, and it happened to be on a trip that had a huge amount of tragedy. A whole bunch of people on his expedition died. So this is not exactly going to be a happy book, probably, but it's going to be a true story of a real life exploring adventure type of thing. So we're going to try that and see if it's too depressing or too much detail or not interesting, or maybe it's going to be fantastic. We will see. So that'll be next time. I hope you join me, and thank you very much for watching.